There's a really significant amount of money on the sidelines. At Bitwise, what we do all day is speak to financial advisors and family offices and institutions about crypto. The thing that crypto should realize about ETFs is
all hell is about to break loose in crypto markets, at least according to Matt Hougan, Chief Investment Officer at Bitwise. This man is an industry expert and insider. So, what really comes next for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and crypto? Smash the like button. You're going to want to watch today's whole interview. First things first, explain why Bitcoin's price is moving.
Matt Hougan, Bitcoin is rallying hard. Many people were expecting slower growth and are now feeling like they maybe missed the pump. Bitwise is an industry leader. You study this. Why is Bitcoin's price rallying so hard?
Yeah, I think it's really people coming to grips with the fact that they can't wait until the election to allocate. There's so much pent up positive demand for crypto and Bitcoin specifically in the market. So many long-term trends pushing us forward. We have the Bitcoin ETFs. We have Larry Fink on TV calling it a major asset class. We have institutions moving in. But people sort of had in their mind that they could wait until after the election to get in. I think yesterday when Kamala Harris came out with some vaguely pro-crypto commentary in a policy position paper, that was enough to make people realize that they had to get in now, that they couldn't wait till the end. Our view at Bitwise is that crypto will end the year at new all-time highs, and it was just a question of when the rally would begin. It's possible the rally has already begun.
Really? So I heard, depending on which political side you side with, I heard some people saying, the market's pumping because people are pricing in a Trump presidency. He was surging in the polls and he's a crypto president. Obviously, Kamala came out with her seemed like she was killing two constituencies with one stone, talking about crypto and the Black community. You think it has to do with Kamala more than Trump?
Well, look, I think the market already realizes that a Trump presidency would be good for crypto. So that's clear. I think the question the market has is what would happen if Harris wins? Would that be neutral for crypto? Would it be positive for crypto? Or would it be strongly negative for crypto? I think what people learned from the fact that Harris at least mentioned crypto is that she recognizes that, at least for a particular demographic, caring about crypto is something worth noting. So that maybe removes the worst outcome that people were considering. So at least we're getting to neutral, if not positive. Neutral is plenty for Bitcoin to rally. I think for altcoins, there are more questions, but for Bitcoin to do well over the next few years, neutral from Washington is perfectly fine. I think the very limited commentary we got out of the Harris campaign yesterday made neutral more likely. And I think that's what sort of unleashed the rally, removing that worst possible outcome from sort of the span of outcomes to consider.
Yeah, I totally follow that logic. I can see that. Obviously, just being a little bit better than the past 4 years would be, very much better. And the fact that crypto is no longer a partisan issue. You mentioned that people have been waiting for this rally to start, maybe waiting till after the election, but people can't wait any longer. The rally might be starting now. Do you think there's a lot of money still on the sidelines or was on the sidelines? Like, is there a lot of money that's still on the sidelines you expect to come in?
There is a really significant amount of money on the sidelines. At Bitwise, what we do all day is speak to financial advisors and family offices and institutions about crypto. And they all had their eye on the election, wondering if crypto will get the all clear. Markets hate nothing worse than uncertainty. And I think for many people, the election represented uncertainty. And so they were sitting on the sidelines waiting. They realized that crypto is not going away. They realized that it's moving into the institutional sort of part of the world, but they thought they could wait and delay. I think if this rally continues, if we continue to see momentum and it trips up towards 70,000, I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. People realizing they have to get on the train before the election. They can't wait for the all clear. And that's normal. You often see, assets rallying before news. And I think that's a little bit what we might be seeing right here.
And just to get more of your thoughts or Bitwise's thoughts on the potential two presidents that could get elected in the United States, you said either would be better than the past 4 years. Obviously, Donald Trump is, running on to be the crypto president. Is it your opinion that Donald Trump would be an order of magnitude better for the industry, or how do you see it?
I think it depends on what part of the industry you're talking about. Honestly, as I mentioned, I think with Bitcoin, neutral is fine. Bitcoin doesn't need Washington to thrive, it just needs Washington to get out of the way. That may be true with Ethereum as well. Ethereum maybe has sort of leapt the regulatory boundary and is now an institutional asset. As you move beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum into the altcoins, I think those are more sensitive to regulatory developments and the speed of regulatory clarity and the sort of quality of the regulatory clarity that we get. In other words, in a sort of mixed government environment, where maybe you have a Republican Senate and a Democratic House and a Democrat in the White House, how quickly do we get regulatory clarity around altcoins? It could take a fair amount of time. So I do think in the altcoin space, it matters quite a bit what we see in November. For Bitcoin and even for Ethereum, a little bit less, but even for Ethereum, I think they both do well, and they're just waiting sort of to clear this hurdle to get it out of the way.
Let's talk about these ETFs. Right now, we have a spot Bitcoin ETF approved. We have a spot Ethereum ETF approved. Just first of all, just generally, big picture, thoughts. Why would somebody buy an ETF instead of just going directly to the asset?
Yeah, I think for many people, it's the safest and lowest cost way to access Bitcoin or Ethereum. You could buy it on on an exchange like Coinbase, but you pay relatively high fees, and maybe it's not kept in 100% cold storage. If you're a larger investor, maybe you could do it your own on an SMA, etc. But for many people, buying an ETF and getting institutional custody and paying a fee of 20 basis points or 25 basis points, that's 0.2% per year. That's the kind of fee that the largest institutions in the world would pay to get institutional caliber custody. And you're getting that as a retail investor. Now, there is one important difference. It's not self custody, right? So you're not owning the Bitcoin yourself. You're relying on an intermediary. You're not owning the Ethereum yourself. You can't use it to operate in the DeFi ecosystem. What we find is a lot of people do both. They have some Bitcoin that they keep in self custody because they care about the original ethos of Bitcoin, or some Ethereum that they use to interact with the DeFi world. And then for their investment, they use these ETFs because they're getting institutional prices, even as a retail investor. And that's a pretty good deal. Both are great. What you don't want to be is sort of in between, paying high fees on a centralized exchange without cold storage. That's no man's land now. Either self custody or own an ETF. Those are both good options.
So, thinking about how successful the Bitcoin ETF and these ETFs have been generally in the US. So, my question is, where are we on this ETF total adoption process? Because so earlier in this year, they were turned on for the first time. Finally, Wall Street could get in a regulated, known financial instrument. A couple of months ago, I believe we saw the first wirehouse, was it Morgan Stanley, approved solicited sales. So finally, they could start reaching out to their clients, hey, buy Bitcoin through us. Are these ETFs fully adopted yet, or where are we in this process?
Yeah, not even close. I mean, you have it exactly right. From one perspective, these are the most successful ETF launches of all time, attracted $1 billion investment, already turned on at Morgan Stanley, which is faster than usually happens for ETFs. But it's still the case that most investors, believe it or not, most large institutional investors can't access these ETFs. It's a limited approval at Morgan Stanley. The other major wirehouses like UBS and Wells Fargo haven't even turned on these ETFs in a limited sense. Before I came to Bitwise 6.5 years ago, I was the CEO of ETF.com. So this is my neck of the woods. The thing that crypto should realize about ETFs is they are multi-year stories. If you look back at the gold ETF, which when it launched was the most successful ETF launch of all time, year two had more flows than year one, year three more than year two, year four more than year three, for 8 straight years. I actually think the same thing is going to happen for Bitcoin ETFs. Yes, this was a record year, the most successful ETF launch of all time. Maybe we'll get $20+ billion of assets into these ETFs in year one. That's amazing. I bet you year two is bigger. And I bet you year three is bigger. ETFs are a 5 to 10 year journey to maturity. So we're still really at the earliest stage.
So, as we're wrapping up, some of my final questions, and thank you, Matt, for taking the time today. I encourage everybody to go follow Matt on Twitter and look into the products, the crypto products Bitwise offers. Um, People like Kathy Wood, different known people predicting like $1 million per Bitcoin in 2030, stuff like that. I'm not asking you about 2030. I'm asking you about 2025. Bitwise studies this extensively. What is your 2025 Bitcoin price outlook?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's going to be a new all-time high. I think it's going to be six-figure Bitcoin for sure. And the question is it a one handle or is it a two handle? When I say for sure, of course, there are no guarantees. This is a risky market. You should only invest what you can lose. But the setup for 2025 is really exceptional. For one, this is about the period in Bitcoin's history where you start to feel the effects of the halving. We sort of forget that the halving happened, right? Because there's been so much news. Bitcoin ETFs, Donald Trump at the Bitcoin conference, strategic reserve talk, BlackRock. But the halving is a big deal, and you're just starting to feel that happen. We also have ETFs, which again, I think next year will be bigger than this year from an adoption perspective. And then we have the generalized 4-year cycle, where sort of this is the year where the animal spirits really start going. We also have governments continuing to abuse fiat currencies, stimulus in China, rate cuts. That's a pretty positive picture. So I think Bitcoin, will end the year at new all-time highs, and then I suspect that it'll surpass that in 2025, and it'll be, a strong year for the markets.
And we understand you're not giving financial advice, and literally anything could happen. But it's your opinion that Bitcoin getting six figures in 2025 is likely. And did you say possible that it could hit 200,000?
I think that's certainly within the realm of possibility. Yeah.
Big if true, big if true. And then, Matt, my final question is can you give us any price outlooks? Because again, Bitwise studies this stuff extensively. Any price outlooks for Ethereum or Solana, whatever you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, what I'll say about Ethereum is I'm actually quite constructive on Ethereum right now. I think it's a contrarian bet within crypto. Ethereum is like the asset that people love to hate. It's kind of the middle child of crypto. It's neither the OG Bitcoin or the hot dot that is, whether you want to say Solana or Sui or Aptos or Monad or pick your new high performant blockchain. People assume that Ethereum is like old tech and it's struggling over fee compression as assets move on to layer twos and activity moves on to layer twos. But when you step back and look at it, what are the killer apps of crypto outside of Bitcoin? There are things like stablecoins, there are things like DeFi, there are things like tokenization. What is the leading blockchain for stablecoins, DeFi, and tokenization? It's still Ethereum. If you're a large traditional financial player looking to build on a public blockchain, what blockchain are you going to choose? Most likely you're going to choose Ethereum. And so I think Ethereum has been sort of passed over this year because it's going through this complex teenage adjustment in its architecture. And it's been missed by the narrative around the excitement for Solana and the excitement for Bitcoin. I think it's set up actually to be a pretty good contrarian play in 2025. So I know I just made a very bullish case for Bitcoin. Now I'm making a very bullish case for Ethereum. I am bullish for both. And I think the setup for both is pretty good.
And could you say if you think Ethereum is going to break all-time highs, or what price are you looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I certainly think we could see that in 2025 if we see significant growth in the application space. I think it will depend on that. I think it's maybe more conditional than Bitcoin. We need to see positive stablecoin legislation that helps that move aggressively into the mainstream. We need to see more growth in apps that are built on the Ethereum ecosystem. If we see those two things, absolutely ETH could move to all-time highs. And I think people will look past the current concern and focus over what's happening to fees. I don't think that's the game to play with Ethereum right now. I think you just think about the growth of the ecosystem and the value will sort itself out. But if we see that stablecoin legislation and we see real growth in more applications built in the ETH ecosystem, all-time highs in 2025 is certainly within the realm of what we could see.
Matt Hougan, you're the man. Bitwise is killing it. Thank you so much for coming on today, sir.
Thank you for having me.